Hello, it's Karen from the University City Public Library, and I'm back again with another story. This story is a legend from the island that became Ireland, and it's a legend that's over 1,000 years old. This legend involves the early peoples who lived on the island that became the country of Ireland. And it is part of Irish mythology. You see, there was one group that lived there called the Fomorians, and they had lived there a long, long time. And a little later on, another group came, and they were a magical group. They were called the Tuatha De Danann. And the Tuatha De Danann were not really ruled, but the man in charge was called the Daghda. Now, the Daghda had very powerful magic, and he had 3 possessions that were also magical. The first of these possessions was a cauldron that was never empty of food. No matter when someone showed up who was hungry, they could use the ladle and dip food out of the cauldron. And this ladle was something special too. This ladle was so big that 2 people could sleep in it. That's a mighty big ladle. So the next of the 3 possessions that the Daghda owned was a battle club. And this battle club was so powerful, it could kill 8 men with 1 blow. But it didn't just kill them. If you turned the club around and used the handle had magic to bring them back to life. So that was very handy to have, especially during big battles. Now, the last and most prized possession of the Daghda was his harp, Uatni. Uatni was very magical, and depending on the type of songs you played, it could change the feelings of everyone around. Now, you've heard sad songs, and they might make you feel, a little down or a little weepy. Uatni's songs would send everyone into torrents of tears, and they would just sob and cry. But Uatni could also play mirthful music, happy music, and it would send people into fits of laughter. The other thing it could play was the music of sleep. And it would play this music and everyone would go to sleep until the harp stopped playing. And the last one that the harp could do was to stir up the men to get ready for a battle, because the Tuatha De Danann and the Fomorians were always fighting each other. So this magical harp had a place of prominence in the Daghda's home, and it was hung on a wall. And when he wanted it, he just had to call to it, and it would fly to him, and he could play. Now, one time, while the Daghda and his men were off fighting a group of Fomorians, another group of Fomorians sneaked into the Daghda's house, and they stole the harp. They stole the harp, and they ran, and they stopped at their village, and they got their wives and children, and they ran away from the village. And finally, after they ran and ran and ran, they stopped at the ruins of an old castle. And they stopped there for the night. And they were so happy they had the harp that they hung it in a place of prominence. But it was hung up on the wall in the big hall in the castle. and all the men spread out in the hall between the door and the harp to keep anyone from taking it away from them. Well, the Daghda comes back to his home and sees his harp is missing. "Who's going to help me find my harp?" he says. Well, soon a couple of his bravest soldiers, Lou and Ogun, say, "We'll come with you. We'll help you find this harp. We need the harp. It's your harp, and nobody should have taken it. We need to go find it." So, of course, they saw the tracks of where the Fomorians had left carrying the harp. And they followed the tracks to the Fomorian village. And the village was empty. There was no one there. But now they saw a lot more tracks. So they followed those tracks, and they followed it for miles. And then they saw the ruins of the castle. "They must be hiding in there," Lou said. So they went to the castle, and sure enough, when they looked in the door, there were the Fomorians, and the harp was hanging on the far wall. But all these Fomorians were in between the door and the harp. And Lou said, "Well, how are we going to get it? We can't wade through all those people. They'll attack us." The Daghda said, "Don't worry." And he called to the harp. And the harp flew off the wall and went straight into his arms. Well, by now, the Fomorians are all awake, and they're ready to attack because the Daghda was trying to reclaim his property. So they wake up and they're grabbing their weapons, and Ogun says, "I think you better start playing that harp." So the Daghda starts playing, and he says, "Songs of mirth," as he plays. And soon, all the Fomorians are laughing so hard. Oh, ho, 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 oh, ho, ho, ho. Soon their stomachs hurt. They laughed so hard, and they were rolling around on the floor and just laughing and laughing and laughing. But then the Daghda ran out of songs of mirth. And soon the Fomorians were back up and grabbing their weapons. And Lou says to the Daghda, "I think you better start playing again." So this time, he said, "Songs of sadness." And he starts playing these mournful songs. And soon all the Fomorians were, they were crying and just, so unhappy. And they sat on the floor and they rocked back and forth going, and the tears were flowing. And then he ran out of songs of, sorrow and sadness. So, once again, the Fomorians started grabbing their weapons, and they were going to attack Lou and Ogun and the Daghda. And both Ogun and Lou looked at the Daghda and said, "Please, please, play some more. You need to play some other songs." And the Daghda said, "I will play songs of rest, songs of sleep." And he began playing. And the Fomorians were, And soon they were laying on the floor, and they were sound asleep. And you could hear a few of them snoring. And as they slept, Lou and Ogun and the Daghda sneaked out of the castle and went as fast as they could back to the Daghda's home. And from that time on, the Fomorians never tried to steal the Daghda's harp. And that is the story of the harp Yuatni that was magical and belonged to the Daghda. See you again next time.